If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure the YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. And now, the Sunday address. Don't know if you followed the headlines the last few years or not, but I heard that once upon a time there was this woman who was supposed to be running against Donald Trump and trying to make history, this senator turned presidential candidate, and this woman is being hyped to the sky by the white media. They make a huge deal about how she's dominating in the polls, and there's a ton of headlines saying that she's setting fundraising records. And this woman set a new Democrat record for fundraising. She's raised more money than any candidate in human history, etc., etc. I mean, if this woman has set fundraising records, then we can't deny that she has an invincible groundswell behind her. The dollars don't lie. Look at all the money she's getting. She'll beat Trump for sure, just drowning him in campaign cash. The implication of all this white media attention on fundraising is to give the public the overwhelming impression that the smart money, or at least the big money, is on this female presidential candidate who's running against Trump. So Trump's voters and donors might as well accept that the votes and the money are behind her, and they might as well give up now and save themselves some time and money. I'm sure you've seen those headlines, haven't you? How could you miss them? They're everywhere. Except I'm not talking about Kamala Harris. The female candidate I'm talking about was Hillary Clinton. You see, 8 years ago, there were a ton of white media headlines about how much money Hillary Clinton had fundraised when she ran against Trump. And you know the one word the white media used more than any other when talking about Hillary's campaign cash? Record. Either record-setting or record-breaking. That was how the left corner of the white media was describing and praising Hillary Clinton's campaign fundraising 8 years ago. In fact, the Washington Post reported that by October of 2016, Hillary had raised over $1 billion in campaign funds. Over $1 billion with a B, more than $1 billion. Even Obama couldn't pull that hat trick. But what needs to be said is that the reason she was able to rake in that much cash is because of the so-called mega donors. These are the billionaires and mega millionaires who make enormous political contributions because they're buying access to the White House. They're the people who you read about who have private dinners with the candidates where they get a handful of pals together, and the next day we hear that candidate so-and-so has raised several $1 million in a single day. Both Republicans and Democrats do it, but the Democrats and their pundit allies try to pretend like the Democrats don't. Well, if you look at the campaign finance disclosures, you see the Democrats are neck deep in it. Again, for the slow wits out there, this is not to say that there's anything good about Trump. There's not. The point is that all of this stuff trying to claim as if there's some sort of difference between him and the Democrats, there's not. We've seen these headlines before about record-breaking campaign fundraising. In fact, Hillary was doing better than Kamala at fundraising this point in her campaign. But did that win the election for her? Did it? I'm just asking for a friend. I know it was a few years back, and I don't remember who won the election in 2016, but was it Hillary? It must have been, because the headlines then are exactly the same as they are for Kamala now, so I think it's safe to say Kamala will get the same result as Hillary, right? The white media is hyping Kamala's fundraising, recycling the same headlines from 8 years ago. Female candidate for the presidency, she's electrifying the crowds, she's shattering fundraising records. Kamala's not even ahead of Trump. She's merely quote-unquote closed the gap when it comes to polls in a couple of states. Kamala needs to move the needle majorly, but right now she hasn't. And I guess that's the reason why she's decided to start palling around with pop music figures. If you want irrefutable proof that the left corner of the white media is simply recycling the Obama playbook, you'll recall that during the Obama years, Michelle was praising Beyonce and basically acting like she was still a club rat or something, the First Lady of the United States, shouting out not an intellectual or a historian, but Beyonce. And then Kamala's trying to hitch her wagon to the same train. Beyonce and Megan the Stallion, Miss WAP herself. I guess some of those white DNC consultants must have told Kamala that she made a fool of herself dancing to Cardi B, and I don't think Cardi B's behind her anyway, so she needs to find a new thought to get behind. Now, considering how Jay-Z wanted to be all neutral when it came to Colin Kaepernick in the NFL, he didn't want to offend the offensive people. Why would his wife, Beyonce, decide to go political on this? Because she's getting a big boost in her album sales, ever since it was announced that Kamala's using her music. So a few needle drops for Kamala Harris equals a few million in the bank. It's a business decision. So in the last 4 years, we've seen everything from Get Your Booty to the Polls, to Cardi B, and now Beyonce and Megan the Stallion. When is Kamala going to come to the black community and start pledging tangibles to us, or even solid policies like an anti-black hate crime law? See, when talking to the black community, this is what the world she's doing. No policies, nothing serious. Instead, let's go ahead and bring out some black entertainers. That's what those Negroes will respond to. We can go ahead and do that, and they're like a bunch of dumb little sheep. All we got to do is have Kamala Harris standing beside Beyonce, or have her shaking her bony rump to Megan the Stallion. And instead of being insulted that this is how she comes to us, there'll be a lot of Negroes who go, well, she trying to reach the people. What they're really saying is that they're low information voters. They don't even know what the hell their interests are and really don't care. So for them, this is fine. Kamala's not promising anything to us, and if she's not promising anything, you sound like a fool saying that she's going to do something for us. Kamala knows that her black credibility is sorely lacking, so she's trying to stand as close to black women as she can in the hopes that she'll blend in. Black by osmosis. And while she's trying to appeal to black women voters, I'll reiterate the same questions I've been asking about for the last 5 years. What is Kamala Harris offering to black women? For the shea butter bootlicks who like to infest my comment section, that's the question you just can't answer, can you? Has she made any promises specifically for black women, or any promises at all for black women? Now remember, you've had the bitter shea butter bootlicks like Vivica Fox and other dried up bitter broads who complain that there needs to be a slate of political policies specifically and only for black women because black women aren't part of the black community according to these has-beens. Stupid as hell, but for the sake of argument, let's go ahead and entertain this foolishness. What has candidate Kamala promised to black women? And the reason that I ask is because Vivica Fox has gone on the record giving her endorsement to Kamala Harris. This despite the fact that Vivica Fox has yet to get one campaign pledge or even a Twitter tweet saying what Kamala's going to do for black women. Shouldn't that be what Vivica Fox is talking about? Because that was her main gripe when she was arguing with Ice Cube. She didn't like his proposed plan for black America and certainly didn't like him talking with Donald Trump about it because Trump wasn't promising black people anything. Well, in that case, what's Vivica Fox's justification for supporting Kamala Harris then? As Rolling Stone reported it, Vivica Fox says, quote, "You, talking about Biden, passed the torch to possibly the first African-American female president. Dude, you're going down as a rock star if she wins." That's the way that Vivica Fox talks about a presidential election, that she believes is so important, so crucial, so consequential. Dude, you're going down as a rock star if she wins. That's the level of mentality we're dealing with. So that's all Kamala Harris has to do for Vivica Fox, to occasionally identify as a black woman, and that's enough for Vivica Fox. She doesn't need any tangibles or policies for black women at all. Vivica Fox is doing all this vicarious living mess, which is a political trap black people fall into since the 60s. That's the whole black faces in high places canard. Black people trying to live vicariously through these bootlicks and sellouts like John Lewis, Barack Obama, and Kamala Harris. People who gave up on having success for themselves try to bask in someone else's. Next, Fox is quoted as having said that her makeup assistant wasn't sure that she would vote, and so Fox and some other black women told her, "Honey, let's get some information for you because not voting is voting for Trump. And that is what the other party is counting on, for people to not care. So every time I can spread the word to somebody that may not be politically active, I try to." Man, she's going heavy with the bootlicking now, ain't she? What she said is the very epitome of a low information voter. How does me not voting equal a vote for someone? Does my not going to vote somehow get added to Trump's vote tally? More people in America actually abstain from voting than not, so do all of those non-voters have ballots cast for someone in their names regardless? How does this work exactly? Answer, it doesn't. And no, there's no way Republicans can stop black people from voting if we really want to. The only way black voters don't care about the outcome of the election is because no candidate has come to us and told us that we stand to gain anything from it. It's not our job to get excited about a candidate. It's the candidate's job to come to us and galvanize us by telling us specifically what we're going to get. As Bill Moyers once said, elections are all about who gets what. And looking at both Trump and Kamala Harris, the black vote has not been promised anything at all. The problem that Vivica Fox doesn't want to talk about is that black voters are demoralized. And that being the case, who's at fault for that? It's not the Republicans. Black people aren't going to vote for them anyway. It's the Democrats who have spent decades perfecting the art of bluffing and BSing their way through major elections, using all kinds of propaganda, stalling tactics, talking points, and rhetorical dodges to get votes without promising, much less doing anything to earn them. The only way my not voting for Kamala helps Trump is if Kamala is behind in the polls, and she needs every vote she can get. So the problem clearly is that Kamala hasn't done the work to get black support, and now she's resorting to using the old scare talk and shaming tactics. Again, nowhere in Vivica's cheerleading for Kamala do I see what Kamala's going to do for black women, to say nothing of the black community in general. So why is Vivica Fox all hot and bothered to support her? See, this is why we don't truck with those black celebrities in Hollywood. They're all playing the white media's game. Vivica's blatant belligerence is because her own career is over. She's a washed-up has-been from the 90s, and she's got a bone to pick with black men. Personally, I blame 50 Cent for how she's acting. But my point is, if she actually cared about putting black women first, then why isn't she doing it now? Why isn't Vivica saying that black women shouldn't support Kamala unless she puts forward a plan for what she's going to do for black women? Sure, that's very reductive, and it's going to be self-defeating in the end, but at least it would be consistent. But she's not doing that. So was this really about black women to her, or was it just a clumsy front for her to vent her own anti-black male grudges? Look, you don't have to believe me. Just look at what these people say and what they do. When is someone, anyone, actually going to demand something for their vote in the black community? Because people like Vivica Fox will be all loud and belligerent when she's debating Ice Cube, but when it comes time to stand in front of the white Democrats and give them that same energy, all of a sudden Vivica Fox becomes a house cat. Obedient, loyal, no policies required. And another thing, the white media is milking Trump for ratings with the whole presidential debate stalling thing. Remember back in the spring, there were tons of white media articles saying Trump was dodging a debate with Biden, that Trump was refusing to debate Biden because he was scared to debate Biden. And why were they saying that? Because Trump was ahead in the polls, and he was scared that a bad debate performance would sink his campaign, or so the white media was trying to claim. Okay, well, Donald Trump eventually agreed to debate Biden. Since when has the orange man missed a chance to jump in front of the cameras? And even after he agreed to a debate, the left corner of the white media ran stories saying that he wouldn't show up, that he could still scuttle the debate. So even after he said yes, they just kept reporting on him as if he had said no. And when Trump did debate Biden, what happened? Oh, the debate certainly destroyed someone's campaign, all right, but it wasn't Trump's. Biden was the one who sunk his own campaign. And did the pundits and mouthpieces who claimed Trump was scared of Biden admit that they were dead wrong? Of course not, because it wasn't about accuracy. It was about ratings. And Trump, whether you like him or hate him, is good for ratings. And now they're recycling the same headlines from 3 months ago. When they were saying Trump was dodging Biden, now they're saying Trump's scared to debate Kamala. The reality is Trump already debated one Democratic nominee. Does he owe it to the Democrats to do it again? Kamala needs these debates far more than Trump does, and Trump knows it. The white media wants another debate because it would be great for their ratings, but they might want to think twice about that if they hope that Kamala can win. Kamala Harris is no debater. She got spanked by a closet bigot, Tulsi Gabbard, who humiliated Kamala in 2020 when she reminded everyone about Kamala's reprehensible record as a prosecutor in California. And she humiliated Kamala in front of a black audience in Detroit. Kamala's no better at debating now than she was 4 years ago. Notice how nobody ever talks about how great Kamala was when she tried cases. Nobody ever talks about what a formidable opponent she was in the courtroom. You've never seen anyone make those claims about her, have you? Because Kamala, by and large, didn't try cases. She's had very little actual experience in the courtroom. So this Democratic talking point that she would cross-examine Trump on the stage, that's never panned out for her in the real world. Nobody's ever claimed that she's any good at that. And the few times that we've seen her try it, she's fallen flat on her face. About the closest she ever got to that was when she told Biden that she used to get bused to school, a dubious claim she made, which still is debated and refuted. But again, did that make her the nominee in 2020? When she put Biden on the spot, did she dissect him on cross-examination? When Tulsi Gabbard called her out, did she cross-examine Tulsi Gabbard? Has she ever done that to anybody else? Of course not. So this fiction, this absurd media fantasy that she'll do a Law and Order on someone in a debate, it's false. It's all cap. But we get carpet bombed with this because presidential elections are big business for the white media, and a debate between Kamala and Trump would certainly draw more ratings than the latest episode of crime drama number 1,804,705. That's what's going on with all this noise about Trump's afraid to debate Kamala. Trump's not scared of a debate because he's always been dogpiled by the career politicians. Well, that is until he became one. But he's completely used to being on a stage with 7 other Republicans and a hostile moderator, all trying to make him look like a fool or trying to take him down. And he's beaten them every single time. Why? Because he doesn't try to debate At least he doesn't try to debate policy. He knows the GOP base in particular are too ignorant and too stupid to understand policy, so Trump sticks to what he knows they will understand, like telling them Marco Rubio is short, or Jeb Bush is boring, or preaching the sermon about white victimhood. He goes into his comedy routine and they'll eat it up. So while the other candidates are desperately trying to have a policy debate, Trump is busily having an insult contest. He knows his audience. And all of this back and forth is part of his standard MO. All of this stalling and hemming and hawing that he does. Trump does this to keep his adversaries off balance, and he does that by making sure no one can be totally sure what he'll do next. He's not necessarily a Machiavellian mind, to say the least. He stumbles and bumbles whenever he tries to be brilliant, but part of how he tries to keep the upper hand over other people is by doing stuff like this, saying one thing, then saying, well, maybe I don't want to, or I'm changing my mind on this. When he feels like he's got the initiative because his opponents want him to do something or they're waiting for him to do something, he'll go and pull some stuff like this. He'll make them wait for his answer. Then he'll say that he'll do it, then throw in some poison pill demand that his opponents won't like. For instance, Trump is saying that he'll debate Kamala Harris, but only if she does it on Fox News. And this after he had originally agreed that they would debate on ABC. Now keep in mind, Fox News are not necessarily pro-Trump, but he knows that their audience, especially under these circumstances, are going to be expecting them to go hard on Kamala, so that will be the elephant in the room, pun intended. Kamala, however, is demanding that they stick with the original agreement and go on ABC, but Trump is saying either it's Fox or nothing. As I said, Kamala needs this debate more than Trump does, and Trump's already walked into the lion's den a number of times. Kamala Harris hasn't done it once. In fact, even on the softball networks that she's actually had debates on, she's fallen flat on her face. So if that's what happens when she's on a friendly network, what do you think will happen when she goes on Fox? They're going to be hitting her about her record as a prosecutor. They're going to be hitting her about, oh, you said this or that white people may not like. She knows exactly what she'll be walking into, and she ain't ready. So all of these demands by the Democrats that Trump debate Kamala, we know what will happen. She's been coached to attack him on his treatment of women, hammer him about abortion, because this is all about appealing to white suburban women and about getting black women to see Kamala as some sort of surrogate for themselves. There will be plenty of attempts to manufacture you go girl moments for the next day's white news media cycle, so the debate's going to be used as a PR platform for that, but the left corner of the white media can play off of that and declare her the second coming is the plan. But we've been here before. Hillary Clinton's far sharper than Kamala Harris, but when she debated Trump, she fell flat. There's not going to be this moment where you have the aha or you trip Trump up to the point where he just falls apart in the debate. That's not going to happen. If it was going to happen, it certainly would have happened by now. Trump's been through more than enough debates with a bunch of career politicians and very good rhetoricians, people like Ted Cruz and others. They threw everything in the kitchen sink at Trump. It didn't trip him up. He was ready for it. At the very least, he knew how to deflect it. There's nothing that Kamala can throw at Trump that is going to delegitimize him in the eyes of his voter base, because Trump's not trying to be a conventional politician. Yes, he has a ton of deficiencies, but he successfully deflected that by pointing out that the things his opponents call deficiencies, well, that's simply him not doing things the way career politicians do. And the truth of the matter is, even though he isn't competent enough to be president, at least for his base, they like the idea that what he's telling them is, he's not your run-of-the-mill inside the Beltway DC politician, and for them, that's enough. People agree that these lifelong politicians have been in charge, and things only get worse, or at the very least, they certainly aren't getting better. So they think maybe it's not that Trump is deficient, it's that his ideas are just radically different. Even though most of them are not, Trump has far more in common with the standard Republican politician than not. But all of the hundreds of millions of dollars that Kamala Harris allegedly has fundraised in such a record amount of time, dubious claim at best, it doesn't change the fact that she's not ready for prime time. She doesn't understand how to use media to her advantage. She's never been attacked on her sucking up to the California political machine. And do you think that Trump won't possibly pull a Tulsi Gabbard and bring up Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor? He'll say that while she was locking up people, and he'll be sure to say black people for marijuana, Trump, while he was president, used his pardon powers to grant clemency to a handful of drug offenders. But by the time he tells the story in the debate, it's not going to be a handful of Negroes that he got out of jail. He'll instead be claiming that he was the second coming of Abraham Lincoln. So on the one hand, you're going to have Kamala Harris trying to attack Trump on his treatment of women and abortion, and Trump is going to be attacking her on her record. And truth be told, in that regard, Trump has far more ammunition to work with. Just like when Tulsi Gabbard attacked her, Kamala Harris will give some empty deflections, but she won't be able to deny the accusations, and that's what's going to count. Hitting Trump with his record on women only hurts him if he's ashamed of his behavior or trying to run from it. And as we all know, Trump's entire brand is that he's shameless. And those low IQ rubes who support him, they love his bigoted antics because he reminds them of the racial double standard that exists in America. And they love seeing someone taking full advantage of their racial privilege. Meanwhile, Kamala's base are very angry with her for her record. And she's been running for that record for several years now. If she agrees to 3 debates, that could be the worst mistake she's ever made. She'll be like Sarah Palin trying to remember the talking points that Paul Begala or Donna Brazile or James Carlin or whoever fed to her, also trying to dodge the insults and accusations that Trump throws at her. She's had her debate trials by fire and she's failed all of them. Trump, on the other hand, has gone through several trials by fire and succeeded. So please understand what's really going on here. See, when you have a media monopoly, or at least a huge media megaphone, you have disproportionate influence. And when you see how easily masses of people can be made to believe whatever you put in print or on the air, you start thinking you can bend reality to your will. This is what we mean when we say the white media is constantly trying to conjure magic. That's what that means. By the white media constantly hyping Kamala, constantly name-dropping Beyonce and such, they're trying to make a rock star out of somebody who is not. The idea is to give her some air of inevitability. Why, she's just a juggernaut taking over the world. She's invincible. She's a rock star, even if she ain't. Okay, maybe she's not a rock star, but she hangs out with R&B stars and rappers, and that's the same thing, right? If they can't dazzle you with diamonds, they'll baffle you with BS. And let's make sure we cover all our bases here. A lot of people are thinking that they can use black women as pawns in the political game. That's what's going on. The Republicans dragged Amber Rose, aka Skankosaurus Rex, out of mothballs to speak at the RNC, and she, of course, endorsed Trump, and Democrats like Van Jones were shook by that for some reason. Keep in mind, this was before Biden dropped out of the race. Now, what does it say that Democratic pundits are scared that a thought whose 15 minutes were up a long time ago can get more young people to listen to her, especially young black voters, than Biden can? What does it say about Democrats if that's what they actually believe? Well, I guess it was either this or OnlyFans. So we all know that elections can be bought. You certainly can't become president without hundreds of millions of dollars. But just because it takes money to win an election doesn't mean that whomever has the largest war chest automatically wins. Ask Hillary Clinton. This is about trying to buy a way around the demands of black voters. If they saturate the public in general, and black voters in specific with Kamala hype, will black voters begin to respond like they did to Obama? That's the drum that they're banging hard as hell, that Kamala is the next Obama. They're running the exact same playbook, word for word and line by line. That's the button that they're trying to push. But they're overlooking how Obama is viewed by black voters now, especially those under 50. But they think if they just dump enough boatloads of cash into the race, then they can brainwash black voters into ignoring that. But this is what both political parties are presenting as their outreach to black voters. PR stunts and living vicariously through people who don't want to live near us at all. That's why more black voters are saying they're just going to stay home. Elections are transactional. Get over it. Because no matter how much money Kamala Harris stockpiles, the math doesn't change. Nothing from nothing still leaves nothing. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Eric Bailey, Stay Positive, Devin Goodwin, Chaz Bronxon, and Alan Reese. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.